In this lesson, we'll take a look at a feature of Cinema 4D called compositing tags, which can be incredibly useful for rendering purposes. Okay, so this is the scene that we're going to be working with for this lesson. And you can see I have this sort of a clear, transparent glass in here. And inside of this glass, we have a couple of cubes. Now again, this is a relatively simple scene to just sort of show off this compositing tag feature. So you'll notice these cubes, as we get in a little bit closer, are actually a little bit reflective. So we can start to see some reflections of sort of the ground and reflections of the other cubes. So with this compositing tag, we can essentially start to control at a very, very fine level the overall rendered appearance of our objects, and exactly what we get back in our renders can be really, really finely controlled. So let's say, for example, we have this blue cube. And let's say maybe we, for whatever reason, maybe don't want this object to be seen by the camera, but maybe we still want this to be seen by reflections and things like that. Well, that's exactly what the compositing tag is designed to do. So let's start by selecting this blue cube over here in our Object Manager. With this, let's go up to Tags, down to Cinema 4D Tags, and down toward the bottom, or sort of toward the top here, we'll go up to a compositing tag. Now, there's really two different types of compositing tag. We have the major compositing tag, and then we have one called external compositing. Now, this is really meant to be used if you're going to be going to some sort of an external compositing system. So what we're going to focus on is the compositing tag. So you can see now on this blue cube, we have this compositing tag that has been added. So if we come in here and double click on that tag, we can now start to play with some of the different attributes that are found on this. Now by default, pretty much all of the different options are enabled, so by dropping on this compositing tag initially, we really don't see any change here at all. But let's say, again, maybe we want this object to be seen by the camera, but maybe we don't want this object to show up in reflections for maybe just artistic purposes. So what we could do is, again, with this blue cube and its compositing tag selected, let's maybe tell this to not be seen by either the camera, or we could tell it to not be seen by rays. So let's see what happens if we turn off this seen by camera. So we'll turn that off, give that just a moment, and now you can see this area that was initially containing our cube. This little sliver of the cube is gone. So it's not actually able to be seen by the camera itself anymore. Now you will notice that the cube is still sort of there. It still has a shadow that's being cast. The cube can still be seen in the reflections of the glass and the other cube. And if we take a look and look through the glass, it can still be seen through the glass itself. So there's actually a few other checkboxes that we can start to enable here. So for example, seen by rays. Now this has to do with ray tracing rays. And again, these are what we use for reflections, refractions, transparency, things like that. Now, if we turn this off, you'll notice that all of a sudden all these other options become grayed out as well. So now, seen by rays, now we really see no sense of this cube at all, except for the shadows, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Now if we turn this rays back on, now you can see these different options become available. Now here we can start to get a little bit more fine with our control. So maybe we only want this cube to not be seen in the reflections. So, seen by reflection, turn that off, and now what we should see is this cube should disappear from the reflections of both the glass and from this red cube. Okay, we can also tell it to not be seen by refraction, which is what we're seeing here. So if we disable that, now this object should no longer be seen through the glass. Very nice. So you can see where we can gain a really, really high level of control. So maybe there are certain objects that artistically we want to place in the scene, but maybe we don't want its reflections interfering with other objects. So we can have the object be visible to the camera, but still not be visible maybe through a certain window or in the reflections of other objects. So now you can see my cube is able to be seen by the camera, but it's not able to be seen through reflections or refractions. All right, now finally, we have control over the shadows for this object. So right now it's set to cast shadows, which we can turn that off. And now we should start to see the shadows that are being cast by that object start to disappear. Very nice. We can also tell this cube to maybe not receive any shadows. So in this case, the shadow that's being cast onto this cube by the red one, we could disable its ability to receive shadows, and now you can see that shadow starts to disappear. So again, if maybe we have a certain object in our scene that we want for artistic purposes, but maybe we don't want it interfering and casting shadows in certain areas or being able to receive shadows, this compositing tag provides a perfect opportunity to get a very, very high level of control. And the nice thing is that none of these changes are permanent. So if we start to play around with this compositing tag, and maybe we just decide that this is not the right course of action, maybe we really don't need this after all we have to do is take that compositing tag and just delete that out. Now you can see everything goes right back to the way it was. So again, you can start to see where this becomes a very, very useful feature where we have now full control over exactly how every single object in our scene could potentially render out. So that's a look at how we can start to use compositing tags for the purpose of this really, really high level of control.